See yourself as God does. People will use their opinion of you to manipulate you. God won't. People will even make up an opinion of you to gain their ends. God won't. He loves you. If you're like me and were highly sensitive, you experienced others' behavior as brusque, gruff, frank, aggressive, uncaring, or unpleasant, whether it was intended to be or not, and you developed an opinion of yourself that there must be something wrong with you if everyone else is so nasty to you. If you were raised in an abusive home like I was, then you have all the more distorted thinking to deal with. Thankfully, I could see as a kid there was something wrong with my parents, and that was probably my saving grace, because I could then put the blame back where it should have been placed, with them. But you're still affected by it. I lived under the constant threat of violence or abandonment by my parents, with no sense of security to speak of. I've had to learn how to develop one as an adult. There's an easy trick to help you stay centered around manipulative people. We, all too often, try to define ourselves. In the matrix, many of us have developed low self-esteem, and this is reflected as either inferiority or grandiose, entitled behavior. It's two sides of the same coin: low self-esteem, which is a reflection of one's lack of connection to the God source. Connect with your Christ self, your God self, and you automatically have high self-esteem because that love is flowing through to you. But there's a trick to accomplishing that without that connection. The first part of it is understanding that who you believe you are as learned about yourself in the matrix is not who you truly are. As you grew up, you made false assumptions about yourself based on the way people treated you. We discussed expectations other people have of you and how they may try to manipulate you based on their perception of you as having low self-esteem. So I said, don't have low self-esteem. Just don't have it. How do you do that then? You see yourself through God's eyes. And to God, you're a perfect expression of His love. As you are. Despite the fact you've learned here that you're flawed, maybe a failure at times, you're not pretty, you're not a ripped guy, you think you're clumsy, gawky, slow, it doesn't matter what you think of yourself. That's my point. Just remember how God sees you, as perfect. Keep telling yourself and you'll begin to be a lot less harsh on yourself and to love yourself more. God doesn't make mistakes, they say, and He made you. So that means you're okay. But of course, there are those in the power over others system that will try to monopolize on societal ideas and general tendencies in order to gain for themselves. That TriStar vacuum cleaner salesman who pulled out that enlarged picture of dust mite, telling me how many of them are crawling around in my bed right now. Generally, people don't like bugs, so they capitalize on that fact. This was a blatant manipulation to gain a sale. The homewares sales lady who flattered my father's artwork and told me what a stand-up guy she thought he was thought that flattering my ego would gain her a sale, but she didn't realize I didn't think my father was a stand-up guy. Her telling someone who knew she wouldn't get married that she'd be married in 6 months got her nowhere as well, but yeah, I was pretty when I was 19. The person I was just dealing with who predicted that my channeling service would fail if I didn't change my ways and do it his way, clearly thinks he can make me fear for my future. Don't give your power away to people who have little themselves. Don't make them your higher power. As Saint Germaine said, put no man before you. Really, if people can move your opinion of you that easily, you really have to practice this method. What I do believe, though, is it says a lot about the people who are doing it, and that they in fact are that easily manipulated because they believe everyone else to be that way too. When I went into a bar and the guy who was hitting on me telling me that if I had sex with him that night, it would save him $50 for the prostitute he would have hired. Well, that one just blew me away and I refused to go into bars anymore after that. That was the last straw. He was appealing to my sense of kindness, he thought, and by buttering me up, figured he'd gain his prize for the night. You have to watch how people speak to you and watch for flattery or put-downs, whether they be subtle or not. The other thing you have to figure out is whether they want something from you, and what that could be. Sometimes they tell you, Sometimes they don't. There is such a thing as paying a compliment, of course, but when compliments are paid for the sake of gaining for yourself, then it's a cheap counterpart of flattery and there's an agenda, which is a whole different ball of wax. You can spend your whole life trying to eliminate all the things about yourself you don't like, but what if you have a big nose that you don't like? Will you get surgery or just learn to live with it? Self-acceptance through the ego is an unaccomplishable feat, I feel, especially on a planet where we've been taught not to accept ourselves and to allow others to control and manipulate us on that principle. We have a false self that sometimes we can't even see past, and it's our life's work to break it down to understand who we really are. Just remember you're fine because God made you. Could it be more simple than that? Remember God is your higher power, and you will create a closed loop between you and Him that will keep you from giving your power away too readily. If you know you're okay, nobody can mess with you. When I was a kid, my mother would call me all these things, like crazy, stupid and fat, in order to get her way. That's how powerless my mother was against a kid. She had to demean me, call me things and usher threats of negative consequences if I didn't do or be as she wanted me to. My mother taught me a great lesson and I've used it frequently through transactions with dark attackers throughout my life. Like I said in another video, people will try to tell you you're something you're not in order to motivate a better response from you, better being the one they prefer, of course. This is highly toxic and it's called gaslighting. You have the right to self-determination. It's been taken away from you in the Matrix, and now you have to take it back. You have the right to define yourself, not others. Those people who crab at you because you're looking at them in the Walmart parking lot, the ones who cuss at you because you're just standing there waiting for them to back up. Yeah, seriously. This has happened to me. The ones who see the anti-compliance signs in the back of your car and bitch at you for not wearing a mask. The ones who attack you on social media. They're all trying to get you to comply with the Matrix by attacking your self-worth. Remember, the Matrix is low ball and you're flying above it? They're trying to get you down. I'll use an old expression. I can only comment that if the Matrix is so appealing, why are they so grouchy? Doesn't look like any place I want to live. Attacking your self-worth is what the Matrix is all about, and its minions make a point of doing this, in my case quite a lot. They're attacking my high energy and don't even realize how manipulated they are. The Matrix has given you a false idea of what a human is, which is a physical body, and then they keep attacking those who realize otherwise. Everything the Matrix is about your believing you're a physical body. That's the only way it can control you. When you start not to believe that, the whole world changes for you and you open up to the truth. The Matrix doesn't like empowered people. It attacks them to try to get you to comply. So if your sense of self is still based on your ego's old idea of who you aren't, revert to thinking of yourself as God sees you, perfect. Don't let that go to your head, understand that with humility. And keep doing the work of transmuting your shadow and you'll begin to see who you truly are, not who you think you are. Ivo told me this so many times when I'd argue with him about what I could accomplish. He'd say, "You don't know who you are." Implying that he did, of course, and he does. I'm not the person my mother called fat, stupid, or crazy. I'm not the person who was intimidated by my father's anger. I'm not the person my father laughed at when my mother cut my hair. I'm none of those. Those are old memories of who I thought I was. And you'll find you'll have them as well as you ascend. Just practice this trick I've taught you and you'll be putting your power where it needs to be put, with God, not with others. When you let others bash at your self-esteem in order to get you to comply with their agendas, you're in the Matrix. When you let people predict your doom and believe it, you're falling for their agenda. When you believe liars and believe you'd better do as they say otherwise you're going to suffer, you've fallen for a false flag. One time, someone messaged me and said, "You don't realize this yet, but I'm going to become very important to you in a couple of months." Some stranger, right out of the blue, did this. I said, "Well, You're not very important to me now, so see ya later. This is an obvious manipulation, and it implies that if I don't consider this person's importance, I would probably suffer some kind of loss in future. If you want practice, read the letters from people that end up in your spam folder. I've got one lady who wants to come to Niagara Falls. I have no clue how they got my email address, but somehow it has something to do with my Facebook account. This letter is telling me that I'm a very nice person. How would they know? And they're sure that I'd host them when they come to Canada, yada yada yada. It's actually funny, but they know one thing: manipulation and control is what makes this world go round. It does. Don't let it. Become assertive. Stand your ground and refuse to deal with manipulators. Some use niceness to manipulate, others are nasty. It tells you more about them than it does about yourself. People who are annoyed with you will insult you and degrade you because you haven't done what they wanted you to. Don't fall for this. Sometimes you can feel the loss of energy as this energy is being stolen from you, but don't let their negative opinion of you sway your opinion of yourself. If you're scrutinizing your behavior as you work your shadow, you'll figure out what needs to be changed as it is flagged up by your higher self, not by someone who's trying to con you. The other thing, look at how much of this behavior is exhibited by children, and then you'll see that some people never grew up. I believe that's what the Matrix is about as well, not allowing people to mature to adulthood. Sincerely, Sheran.